I saw in person, that wins for sure.
So do we want to do overall grade?
Let's do a quick grade.
Okay.
No, let's not talk about it.
Okay.
Let's just do quick grades, guys.
A for effort. Just kidding. I mean, you have to give them.
Steven.
I mean, I know we're not. I am not going to talk about the ownership or even the coaching staff. I'm going to talk about it strictly from the team perspective, and I'm just going to give them a failing grade. I'm going to give them a D plus because they failed. They didn't make the playoffs. That has to be your goal. I don't care if it's year 1 or year 20. I said that before. Your goal needs to be to make the playoffs. They didn't do it, so you fail. D plus. Yeah.
Sterling?
C minus.
All right.
So, I'm in my MBA right now. Anything below a C minus is failing.
Okay.
I give them a C minus because they showed a glimpse of being slightly better.
We got it. All right.
I don't want to say they failed,
All right.
but Manny Lagos is a jackass.
We'll bring that up in
He doesn't know how
the
to
next
build
round.
a team.
Yeah.
And Adrian Heath may or may not be a decent manager, but he managed to somehow, God only knows,
All right.
not make us the worst team in the league.
Okay.
So, C minus.
And mine is a C minus as well. Because we didn't make the playoffs.
I didn't think I was going to be the harshest grade. Well,
You are.
we'll give John and David a chance to chime in.
Yeah,
as
so-
well.
You're not going to be the hardest.
So, John Drewski, go ahead.
I've always said at least a low C.
Low
But
C?
my problem is, though, Sterling knows this, I do not fault Adrian at all.
Yeah.
I like the guy. He had those injuries, wasn't given much after.
He switched formations.
I mean, and then you
out of
hear these
necessity.
people, Adrian this, Adrian that. I'm like, you know what? You can say this about everybody. My heart goes out to Paul Molitor. Got shit, gets fired. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, if you want to talk about the best coaches in the world, the most overrated coaches ever get big teams. Look at Phil Jackson. My 7-year-old could have coached that team. Hey, go play basketball with those teams. That's all you got to do. He's the only coach that's always sat down. Joe Torre, in my opinion, overrated. You get the talent, you're going to win. What do you do?
All right.
The worst coach in professional sports, Jose Mourinho. Because
He has destroyed.
he succeeded
destroyed.
with really good teams, and he has sucked with really good teams.
He has lost. But I just say, given the talent,
Yeah.
All right.
All right, Dave.
I'm going with a
David
hard
Beard.
D.
Hard D.
Hard D.
All right.
So like an undergrad D or a...
D's don't get degrees.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, D's don't get degrees. Yes. I like how they did a lot of the offensive moves in the middle of the season, but they, like we talked about it earlier, they didn't go anywhere where we actually needed it on the defensive side.
Yeah.
When you sign 3 or 4 players in the middle of the year and the most defensive one is an attacking center midfielder, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
There are, of course, glimpses of good stuff, but like you said, not getting the playoffs, it's not passing.
Yeah.
And I think that they have a lot that they have to fix this offseason.
They do.
You wanted to be further along in their 3-year plan than they are.
Yes.
A lot.
Especially going into a brand new stadium where you know the beer is going to be $14 a pop.
Oh.
You need to make sure that you're putting a decent thing on.
Don't remind me, Dave.
I'm just going to get drunk before the games. Sober up.
I mean, there are plenty of breweries
along that corridor.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you roll up is there an Alloy truck with a keg in the back?
That is very illegal. So no, there is not one.
Son of
Sorry.
What if I buy a keg, put it in the back of my Jeep, and drive it up to the? Is that illegal? If I give it out for free without carding them. Wait, with carding. Sorry, with carding them.
With carding.
With carding.
I mean, that's completely on you, so I don't care.
Sure.
Hey, all the way around it. Ready up.
No, I'm very excited for next year because I hope that they do more things this offseason.
Oh yeah.
But I love the game. I love that we have the team. I just hope that they continue to push to be better. Because sometimes you see teams that just kind of go complacent and change a lot of things.
So, with that said, we're going to end this half of the podcast on the awards. Next up, we got the Manny letter.
Yes.
You got some other things to talk about? Manny letter.
The FC Cincinnati
FC Cincinnati expansion draft.
/ roster
A little
stuff.
bit of that.
We should mention
Lampson.
a couple other things, yeah.
We got some Lampson stuff to talk about. He won an award. So we're going to take a little break, guys. I want to thank Dave the Beer Tender again for hanging out.
And thank you guys.
And we'll be back in a little bit.
That's good.
Tony. I'm here with Dave and Dave. And John Drewski, of course. He's here hanging out.
Still.
Crazy. You can find us on the BGN Network. Beautiful Game Network. You can find us on iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you want. Really.
Yeah. Except MySpace.
MySpace, we're on there. You look up Loonacy. Well, you should. Dave the Beer Tender he has to go back to his business of doing some beer tending.
He's actually working then.
He's working.
As are we, though.
He'll be back. I think he'll be back. I asked him to come back because he's fun.
It is starting to get busy in here, though, now today.
A little bit.
Because we started right at the opening hour here, so.
We got some kids.
Yeah.
I will say this before we get into anything else. Nick, his name is Nick. His last name I can't say his last name, but he is doing a comic book.
Is it? I think it's like a graphic novel. And he's selling it here.
He's got some people from Loonacy who are in the graphic novel, and he's doing it here. And he also has a podcast
from Alloy that are in the. No,
I'm sorry.
Yes, we're not in the graphic novel. Sorry to disappoint, but.
Yes, let's make that.
Maybe we could be in a future one, though.
Dave and I looked at each other.
We could be in a future one.
Sorry, I was handed this note and I got off kilter. But so he does a podcast called St. Paul Filmcast, and I've actually listened to a couple episodes because I saw they were going to be here. Classic and modern films. I do a little podcast about things and.
So yeah, quick plug. What's the name? Is it St. Paul Filmcast?
St. Paul Filmcast. Yes, that's what it is. Nicholas from there is doing his graphic novel. So we're going to go buy his book after this, I think.
I've never bought a graphic novel before, so
either,
I might very well do that.
I have.
What is a graphic novel?
It's like a comic book
similar
with
to a
words,
comic.
I think.
Comic book? No, it's a comic book that's like a book.
Okay.
It's not a comic book, it's a book.
So do I have to read, or is it just look at pictures?
No, you can look at pictures, Dave, if you want to. You don't have to read anything.
So I think what you're saying is I could just look at the pictures and get the gist of the story.
Yes.
Stretching looks like the video from
Take On Me?
Is that
Yeah, sure, yeah.
It looks really awesome. He puzzled that.
Maybe he's the guy from Take On Me. Reviewing the video.
From Sweden?
From
Yeah,
Sweden.
that would be weird.
Swedish. All right.
But he seems like a very nice guy.
He's a very nice guy.
Gave us a shout out already on
Give
Twitter.
a shout. We'll give him a shout right now on our podcast. And hey, all podcasts together, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We're all in the same
We
boat.
support local beers, and we should support local podcasts
We
as
do.
well.
And this is the first one of the first podcasts I've ever met.
Yes.
That's true.
I met one at the Vikings game. It's got the Walleye something podcast. Met them. And this is like one of the first I ever met that I've had a long talk with. So,
Yeah.
So let's get back to our loose discussion. Manny Lagos had a little interview with
Jeff Ruder
Jeff Ruder from
of the Athletic.
And this was right after the season ended, correct?
Yes. So we're going to talk about that. And I read through the whole thing. My first feelings about it was your basic interview. He didn't say much that was crazy.
No.
You know, he talked about a lot of stuff, and it was the same company line type of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, wasn't nuts. But Sterling, you have some feelings on this.
Yeah, I'll just run through some of the topics that I saw. He addressed the building hunger on the road.
Yeah.
That whole thing that obviously we all know, we've discussed it at length.
Yeah.
Of how our road record sucks.
It's terrible.
So, he just kind of said that, they need to find that mentality of wanting to be a good defensive team, that they need to be kind of envisioning that concept as they recruit. Players, hopefully will buy into that vision, the mentality of our club. Ultimately, that's going to help, do all that. And he really addressed the central midfield hasn't provided the style of leadership they need.
Sure.
So then, that of course led Jeff to talk about Sam Cronin, and he asked Manny, when did you realize that Sam Cronin was not going to be available?
Injured for the year.
Yeah. And I put in my notes an exclamation point after this because Manny said mid-February. And so for me, I'm like, okay, mid-February, the season hasn't started. The window is still open. They did absolutely nothing. To address this.
Yeah.
And I think Jeff kind of went the same direction I did.
Trying to
with
get
his
him to
next
talk.
Yeah, and with his next question of, well, okay, great. So, did any interleague trades exist, and Manny was pretty, what I would say is probably open about the idea that he didn't feel like Major League Soccer provided a defensive midfielder that was available.
Yeah.
That was the quality they were looking for.
Can we?
I think that's what I was bringing up earlier. It's just
Go ahead.
So I'm just saying that's what we touched on earlier. So he couldn't find a quality defensive midfielder, and that's basically. I guess maybe I shouldn't say excuse, but that's his reason for not bringing anybody in.
Can we break away from the Manny interview a little bit and just talk about Manny Lagos as the GM of this team?
Minnesota soccer legend,
Sure.
Okay.
Manny Lagos.
And we talked about this in the last podcast, and I'm going to say it again. We have a thing in Minnesota about dropping beers. Sorry. We have a thing in Minnesota about our Minnesota's own, right?
Right.
So Manny Lagos has been with a Minnesota soccer team for how long now?
A while.
A long time, right?
A long while.
So let's play the game of Joe Mauer, same way.
Yeah.
You look at the Wild, you look at the guy Suter and what's his nuts, the forward. Can't think of his name.
Yeah, I'm not a wild guy.
Whatever his name is. But we're always about Minnesota. Minnesota's. We get our guys back here. And
He's one of ours, yeah.
He's one of ours.
Joe Mauer just retired.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Paul Molitor.
Yeah. Dave Linfield, Jack Morrison. So Manny Lagos is one of ours.
Right.
So do you guys believe that we have a different view of him because he's one of ours? Do you think that fans have a different view of him because he's one of ours?
Honestly, I
Yes.
don't think so. I mean, I think ownership does.
Well, I think.
Sorry. Sorry.
No, let's go back.
I'm sorry
Let's
if
go
we have
back.
different opinions
Let's
on
go
this,
back.
but we do,
Let's
apparently.
go back.
No,
Dave,
it was first.
Stevens, what did you say? I think ownership has a different opinion of him.
I do, but listen, I'm not a huge Twitter guy, but I do jump on from time to time, and from what I've seen, there's not a. It's not like we're talking. It's when you look at the Twitter sphere or whatever you want.